Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I want to thank my buddy Kyle Curley. Jeff and I had a bit of an extended conversation when we got out the air. We used to work together, so we know a lot of the same people, and we were just talking about some terrific journalism that the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com has done recently, and it was, we ended up getting into a bit of a conversation about it, and Kyle was being overly patient. I appreciate that. Now we're going to shift gears. We don't have JT Mitchell this week. We have Caleb Sailors, who is a multimedia journalist who works, hand in glove with JT and that team at SuperTalk Mississippi Media, and someone I enjoy having on the show. How you doing, Caleb?
I'm great, Ricky. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. As I always tell people, when you go to supertalk.fm or you sign up for the SuperTalk Mississippi app, you're going to find news from Mississippi, not Indiana. I'm telling you, man, a lot of these, even local sites, they put all this junk in there from places. They make it look local, but it's not local. It might be Alaska. And I think that's just kind of a bait and switch to get clicks. What we do at SuperTalk is just load it up with relevant, important news, sports as well, from across the state. So our listeners and our readers can go to one place and see the important stuff all in one place. And you guys work hard to do that, don't you, Caleb?
Absolutely. And if you do go to our site and you see a story from Wisconsin or Arizona or something, there's going to be a Mississippi angle. It's going to be like a former athlete from one of our major universities doing something for one of the professional sports teams. Like Ole Miss had Walter Nolan, defensive lineman, drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. So if you see a story out of Arizona, it might be related to what he did on the field or what Jackson Dart did in New York for the Giants. But no, everything we do is localized. We are focused on Mississippi.
Well, let's see, if you go to the SuperTalk app or you go to supertalk.fm, what will immediately be there are the news items. So it starts with top news. We'll go through some of those headlines in a second. The next column at the top, you can click on it if you want, is politics, and then sports and lifestyle and opinions. If you go to opinions, incidentally, you can read a number of different points of view, but you can also see the columns that I've been writing. I wrote, for example, about a recent sit down with a potential governor candidate. You can go read that. I've written about the need to form a Coastal Mississippi Economic Development Alliance. I will continue to talk about that a lot. You can go see the 3 columns I've written about that. But it's really good. And at the very top, you can see, there's a little live button. You can hit live, watch live. And what you get to do is go directly to SuperTalk TV, which for people who have C-Spire, you can go, it's literally that cable channel you can go to, but you can also see it there. You can click on it. You'll be able to watch our shows on your phone. Go down at the bottom. It's got, of course, a home button, listen. You can go to any of our stations. You can pick talk, and then you can go to 103.1, which is this station. And you can click that and listen to that. You can listen to our shows. So if you're in Greece, you can go there and click on that and listen to this show and not miss a show. And so on. It's just a really, really good site. But look, if I go, this is the top news listed today. Ole Miss advances in SEC tournament. Southern Miss wins 16th consecutive game. Mississippi State guard Josh Hubbard withdraws from NBA draft. Mississippi State eliminated from SEC tournament. High school baseball championships underway in Mississippi. Recreational red snapper fishing opens on Friday. Mississippi student collects $10 million in college scholarships, Red Cross officials, and it just keeps going. You get a good sense of this time of year, especially as baseball is kind of doing what it's doing. We cover it like a blanket. I mean, there's no other way to say it, is there, Caleb?
No, and you mentioned people not being in Mississippi. Ricky, my parents live in Florida. They live in Pensacola, but my dad was born and raised here in Jackson, where I live. And so he still has a very big vested interest in what's going on in Mississippi. And I'll randomly get a text, man, great job on that story, son. Oh, I didn't know that. That's crazy that the mayor of Jackson was beat. That's incredible, son, that Ole Miss won that baseball game. And so people that don't live here anymore can still keep up with what's going on in Mississippi. And like you mentioned earlier, they can go to supertalk.fm or our app and know that when they click on a story, they're not going to get a clickbait aggregated story out of New Hampshire, or, you won't believe what this parent did. Like, you're not going to get that. You're going to get real Mississippi news that is actually pertinent to what's happening from corner to corner in this state.
Yeah, you add to that YouTube and Facebook and the podcast platforms, all the stuff that we're doing across all these multimedia platforms. I mentioned this last week. I've obviously Three Doors Down, and a local star, Brad Arnold, is unfortunately in stage 4 cancer, and he's undergoing treatment. And he posted that. Unfortunately, of course, they had to cancel their tour. But when I did the show with Brad Arnold, and he told his life story, I really would encourage people. You can go search my show and his name, and it will come up on YouTube or Facebook. But anyway, when I told his story, for example, about writing Kryptonite in his math class in high school, and other songs as well. Just crazy conversation. And then when he was in Japan, when he had a drinking problem, he was in Japan, and a conversation with Charlie Daniels and his wife. He gives Charlie Daniels and his wife credit for saving him. And he had been in sobriety for many years now, and then here he is with stage 4 cancer. It's really unfortunate. But look, the reason I brought it up was certainly to honor Brad and to bring attention to his plight, so people would be praying for him. But also, when we had the conversation I mentioned on the show the other day, that I got a note from a young woman in Russia who saw the conversation, and. You never know. Look, Three Doors Down is internationally known, so they got fans all over the place. So you have a conversation with Brad, typically doesn't give these long, hour-long opportunities to get to pry into their lives. And listen, nothing was off limits when I had that conversation with Brad. And it just shocks you what you have the potential to do in terms of touching people way beyond Mississippi.
And you touch on Brad specifically. That's kind of I wouldn't say ironic, but this is a very small world, Ricky. My pastor, his mother-in-law is Brad's sister, and so we've been praying for Brad. Yeah. So I've known obviously I've known who Brad is my whole life because I've listened to Three Doors Down. The band was formed before I was born, but Kryptonite was one of my favorite songs growing up, and so it's such a small world, and you realize the amount of people. You talked about touching someone with a story. We ran a story about, Brad's diagnosis and, him canceling his tour and everything. And the amount of people that reached out to me from my church that just said, thank you for shedding light on this story. Of course, I'm like, look, I'm not doing anything major. I'm just, Brad's telling his story. I'm just being a mouthpiece to help him share that story. But the amount of people that have come together and the amount of people that didn't know, the amount of texts I got, wow, I had no idea that was happening to Brad. Wow, I'll be praying for him. Anything I can do to, let's get him through this. But it's been incredible seeing people, not just from Mississippi, but all over, coming together to show their support for someone that's from Mississippi.
Well, after he was on my show, he's been on the show a couple of times, but after he was on the show, we were friends, and we would, I wouldn't say close friends, but we would communicate from time to time. And one of the things I enjoyed doing was following him on Instagram, for example, and the way he displayed his faith. And here's a hard rock guy who'd been through hell and back, had a real great story of redemption. In some ways, certainly it's not the jelly roll story, but in a lot of ways, from a redemption point of view, it has the ability to inspire others, not just that he found sobriety and that he was very honest about how difficult it was to stay sober, but also the way he gave so much credit to the Lord and his plight, and the way he was willing to display his Christian faith. Even in his concerts, he was willing to display that. And what was beautiful about the video he did posting about his cancer was that you can honestly see that he believes 100% that it's in the hands of the Lord, and he's not scared because of that. And that's the power of faith, man. That's the power of faith. And that living that will inspire people in ways we don't even know.
He's out here, Ricky, in the middle of probably the worst days of his life, preaching Jesus. And that message, and I'm not going to give a whole sermon right now, Ricky. I'm doing that this Sunday at my church, but he's telling people about a hope they can have in their lives, that they can have something that transcends all of their current struggles. I think about a scripture in the book of Romans, chapter 8. It says, "The present sufferings of our time are nothing compared to the glory that'll be revealed in us." And Brad is
Yeah.
living that out. He's absolutely living out scripture where Jesus says that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And Brad's like, yeah, I'm going through it, but I know that I've got a faith, I've got a God that's more powerful than what I'm enduring right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in this book that I'm writing, I have actually a lesson around faith, and it actually starts. I literally have a scripture from Corinthians where it just talks about how this process of going through pain brings you to hope. And it's beautiful to see him in this moment being able to describe literally the scripture that I'm sharing in my lesson about faith. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Caleb Sailors. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. From the Citizens Bank studio, we're visiting with Caleb Sailors, who is a multimedia journalist for SuperTalk Mississippi News. Somebody I really admire. He's a great writer. He's written a lot. I mean, one of the stories I saw that you wrote relatively recently was about Governor Reeves setting a new employment record. But, I've said it many times, Caleb, that our governor, he may have his detractors and whatever, but at the end of the day, he will be known as an economic development governor. There's no other way to describe him. And my time with Joe Max Higgins, who's head of the Golden Triangle Development Link, he said the macros bear it out. I mean, this governor has been micro-focused on growing jobs in this state. And I think this is a way to lift all boats, to be honest with you. But you've had the opportunity to write a lot about that, haven't you?
Yeah, and Ricky, I will attest to what you said about the detractors. With politics, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always, and I'm not here being a propagandist for the governor. And if he does something wrong, we'll hold him accountable, as we do any politician. But no, Governor Tate Reeves has undoubtedly been one of the best economic driving politicians in the state of Mississippi's history. I mean, his record speaks for itself. I mean, $40 billion in new economic development projects since he's taken over as governor. I mean, that's more than every other governor in Mississippi history combined. And we've had some good governors that have displayed strong leadership. I think back to Governor Barber during Katrina and how he helped the coast rebuild from scratch. But there's no denying that Mississippi, he talks about Mississippi having momentum. And I know there's a lot of cliches there, but still, there's no denying that, I mean, Mississippi really is the place to be right now. I mean, you mentioned Joe Max Higgins. Well, in the Golden Triangle, they just unveiled Cinco, the newest the mega site,
Mega site. Yeah.
Their newest mega site in Lowndes County. And Joe Max was talking to Gerard Gibbert, one of our colleagues, and telling him that, we don't have to solicit businesses. They reach out to us to come here. Think about that. There's not that many mega sites nationally. We've got close to 9 of them in Mississippi, and the businesses are reaching out to us. We're not reaching out to them. They are saying, yes, we want to come to Mississippi. We want to set up shop here.
Yeah, this coastal Mississippi Economic Development Alliance that I've written about that I think we need to do is similar to what they've done up in Lafayette County. I mean, with that multi-county arrangement, it's literally called an Economic Development Alliance. And I had Ryan Miller on recently to talk about it. And I mean, we actually had him on yesterday, for a matter of fact. But anyway, yeah, it's really important stuff. And we need to develop a mega site in coastal Mississippi. And this alliance that I'm talking about probably needs to be the 6 coast counties. You got the port, you got highway, you got power, you got all this stuff. I've heard rumors that there's the possibility of some big announcement here as it relates to a data center or something like that. I mean, that's terrific. We've got to get more aggressive. What Joe Max has done with the unveiling of his most recent mega site, they spent over $50 million developing that thing. He's been on my show to talk about it. It's just one of a string of mega sites they've done there with tremendous success. They're not waiting for people to knock on their door. They're creating something that makes people want to come there. They're building it, and they come afterwards. And I think if you build it, they'll come, and we've got to diversify the Mississippi coast economy. That is for sure.
And look what Joe Max did too. The Golden Triangle Development Link. I know he doesn't like getting all the credit, but all those properties are TVA certified. They've already got plumbing, sewage, water, everything, electricity, all taken care of. Here in Madison County, with Amazon coming, Energy Mississippi is building a new substation just to power that facility. So these sites are already shovel ready. And Ricky, you are so right. The coast could be such an epicenter of business. It's perfect location, the port, the interstates, and the population. There's a great population for it. People that need work and want to work. I mean, it would be such a win-win for the Mississippi economy.
Yeah, one of the things I preach is, again, I'm not saying that the coast economic development organizations, when pressed, don't come together around a client. This is not what this is about. This is about us coming together and really beginning to do an assessment of what the strengths and weaknesses are across the 3 coast counties and maybe the 6 coast counties, and deciding that this is where we're going to make our next big investment. And it's taking all of our assets and bringing them together and saying, okay, here like the Mississippi Coast Coliseum, a conversation I had with Mac McDonald, for example. It's time to invest back in the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. It's an economic engine for coastal Mississippi. You know, they're getting a new venue in Mobile. Mobile's playing hardball from a competitive point of view, and other markets are as well. We've just got to do that too. We got to be very focused on that. And we can't, there are 22 different political subdivisions of coastal Mississippi. Each subdivision can't go about this on their own. We need to understand regionally what are our major assets, and then come together very aggressively around the big stuff. I will continue to say that. 87,000 jobs tied up in gaming and government. We see some changes might happen at Stennis, but it's going to hurt coastal Mississippi. We got to diversify the economy. Anyway, I appreciate you bringing that up. Listen, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend. Yeah,
Ricky, always a pleasure to be on.
I can't wait for you to be back. You're a good dude, really good dude. This has been Caleb Sailors, who's a multimedia journalist for SuperTalk Mississippi News. Sign up for the app. Sign up for the newsletter. Go to supertalk.fm and see for yourself. You'll be glad you did.
It's free.
Have a great
all
weekend.
Free.
All free. That's right. There are no like rope-a-does where we're going to make you pay for something. It's all free. And that news is going to almost 50 radio stations across the state of Mississippi. See why for yourself. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday morning.